Welcome to The Bold New Normal, the podcast where bold ideas meet transformative action. I'm your host, Lucy Quist, and I'm here to challenge mindsets, ignite conversations, and inspire you to create the future you deserve. A future where equity, opportunity, and prosperity are not just dreams but realities. So let's dive in and build the bold new normal together. Welcome to part 2 of my talk delivered at the International Women's Leadership Conference. I know you were surprised by where talk 1 ended, the first half ended. Now let's get into part 2. You know, the truth of the matter is that living any dream takes resilience, it takes determination, and it takes a high degree of openness to our own vulnerability to understand and deal with challenges and grow through them. So I hope you take a few lessons out of this one, especially if you're finding any particular challenges yourself, and share the lessons with the people around you. Enjoy.
So in 2023, with no one telling me to, I left my job. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do, especially when you're used to people say, oh, she's doing this, she's doing that, she's doing that. But I reached a point in my journey where I felt spent. There was nothing left. I was emotionally gone, I was spiritually gone, I was physically gone, I was mentally gone, I was gone. And look, I'm a woman of prayer, so I had prayed for more than a year. And I prayed for something to change. And eventually I felt led that what needed to change was me. And so I walked away. And for someone who has a dream, and for someone who believes in visions, I had no plan. And in that season, a few years earlier, I'd spent some time, I felt led and I'd studied Moses. But when you study Moses, then you have to study the Exodus. You can't study Moses without studying Exodus. I'm telling you, I study these things. I take the time, I pick the topics that I feel led, and I will spend probably sometimes a whole year. And in that season when I felt led to walk away, the story that kept being brought back to me was the journey of the Israelites through the wilderness. And it was a very gradual thing. It wasn't that, boom, everything was obvious to me. But that was my tool to navigate what turned out to be over a year's journey of really reinvigorating my cup. So what did I do? If you ever find yourself in what feels like a wilderness, or feels like you're lost. And I'm not asking people to leave their jobs and leave their careers for wilderness. I'm not asking you to do that. So I'm telling you what happened to me. In 2023, I was going to turn 49. My youngest son was about to go to university, and I told you I felt completely spent. But most importantly, I felt I didn't know where I was going. Where am I going? And there's nothing worse than finding yourself, especially someone who's as visionary as I am, to feel that you do not know where you are going. It's the worst feeling. And so I stopped everything because I said, I'm not going to cry another day because I'm lost. I'm not going to wake up another morning and feel I don't want to do any of this. I don't want to go on my knees and pray one more time for something else to change. Lord, I hear you. So we talk about all the amazing and fancy things, but sometimes it gets hard. And sometimes it gets dark. And sometimes you feel you're alone. But if you feel alone, don't stay alone. Don't stay alone. Don't do that. And so the first thing I started doing more every day was walking. Every day I'd pick myself up and I'd go for a walk. And I'd say, Lord, I'm back. We're going to have another conversation today. And some days those conversations were great. And some days they were like, I can't do this because I don't know where I'm going. I found the right people to surround myself with and talk to them. Most of them women, especially women who are a bit older than me, had more experience. And I remember one of them recommended an amazing book for me to read. I read many books, so reading was another thing I did, called Half-Life. Can't recommend it more. And Half-Life happens to people at different stages. Someone can be 25 and get there. I was 49, I was clearly there. What else did I do? I made a decision to celebrate with those who are celebrating. I went to more parties last year than I'd ever been in my life. Look, I even emceed 2 of my friends' parties. If you told me there was a party, I was there. Because I had, through this corporate journey, I had ended up with a life where I was full of excuses. If you told me, let's do something fun, I was like, I'm busy. I've got another board meeting. I've got this. I always had something but to enjoy my life that God has blessed me with. It was in this same season that Mrs. Awosika saw an interview I'd done with one of her partners and reached out and asked me to speak. She actually asked me to speak here a year ago. And so, thank you. And in those kind of seasons, you wouldn't know what it meant to be asked in a down season to come and speak. And I learned without a shadow of a doubt in that season that the dream God has given me is being fulfilled and will be fully fulfilled. Because the twists and turns that I allowed my life to go through in the last year and since 2023 have left me with clear knowledge that my dreams matter, my corporate career is important, everything about me is important, but most importantly, I am loved, accepted, cherished, just as me. Just me. Me is enough. I get to be just me. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I wrote a new life plan. I wrote a strategy paper on what I want my life to be about. Remember I said I was lost? Right? I made my faith more clearly the central theme. But then I talked about what kind of wife, mother, sister, daughter, relative I want to be. What kind of friend do I want to be? What kind of corporate professional do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be for my church? How am I going to execute this dream called the bold new normal? And most importantly, how am I going to enjoy it all? This now sounds like, but Lucy, that's obvious. No, it wasn't. Because sometimes we can go on this journey and forget there's so many different facets to this beautiful life that we have. And then you can sometimes end up where I ended up in 2023 as stop. And then after I wrote the strategy paper for my life, I wrote a strategy paper for my career. Now you hear I've changed the word from vision to strategy paper. Because the visions are there, but what am I going to do with them? And how am I going to further execute them? And so I told you at the start of this talk that I came here to be vulnerable, to tell you that it's hard, to tell you that there are tears, to tell you that sometimes you hit pauses. And for me, the time that I finally realized that a change was going to happen was the end of last year. So throughout the year, you agitate, you cry, you twist, you turn, you write your strategy paper, you talk, you engage people, and you recognize that it's for you to change, right? Because when the Israelites went through the wilderness, it was for them to change. They had to change before they could go into the promised land. And then I was reading this book about Jochebed and how she raised her children, Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. And it talks about the peace she finally found in handing over Moses to Pharaoh's daughter. And the day I read that page in December, I thought, that peace is how I feel now. I feel it's all come together now, and I fully understand why I've been on this journey. Your life is going to entail many, many journeys in living your dream. Even when it seems like it's a down season, your dream is still valid. Maintain sight of your dream. You are enough, and that dream is you. It's not a thing outside of you. It's expressed outside of you, but it's born inside of you. And anything that's born inside of you cannot go away. So let me conclude on a happier note, because I know you feel like, well, Lucy, you make it sound like your life is really bad, and it's not. Conclude on a happier note. Like I said, I started a new corporate position, a new managing director role on Monday. Just gone. Very exciting, back in financial services, but with a different view and a different perspective and a different hope and excitement about the future and a clear strategy in place. So ladies, it may be tough, but your corporate dreams, your corporate career, your corporate aspirations are valid. Pursue them, chase them, and enjoy the journey. Thank you.
You've just listened to part 2 of my talk at the International Women's Leadership Conference. If you didn't listen to part 1, then go back and listen to that because it builds into this one. My point ultimately is that our lives are very real. Enjoy every step of the journey, the highs, the lows, and allow yourself to grow through the highs and the lows, because living a dream is not always roses and fine things. It is actually dealing with the challenges as well, and helps you appreciate even better the realization of those dreams and those visions. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to The Bold New Normal. I hope this episode has inspired you to think boldly and take action towards creating the future you envision. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs a dose of boldness today. Until next time, take action to create your bold new normal.